Welcome back to Legacy Builders, everybody. We've got some familiar faces on today. We've got Jimmy and Tishara Pitts back with us. So you want to talk about their last episode and what we heard from them and introduce this episode?
Yeah, again, we're just excited. We're launching in the middle of our relationship series that we're launching, and Madison and I were talking about who to have on to talk about marriages, and Jimmy and Tishara always come to mind because they have experience in helping others with their relationships. And one of the things that you're going to learn from them, they're working on launching a marriage ministry called Build to Last, and really close to being able to for everybody to hear this wisdom. So we're going to get a sneak peek into their Build to Last ministry, but they've been helping couples for years. So, and this is a couple that's open with. We all go through struggles in relationships, and they're not without struggle. They just overcome those struggles, and that's why we asked them to come today, because they've overcome struggles and made some changes personally and individually to make their relationship better. And are building it to last. And so they, in the process, they've just helped many people in their struggles and in their relationships. And so that's why we want to hear from their wisdom and their experience. So we thank you guys for coming on again to help us with this podcast session.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We love talking about marriages.
Yep.
So we could probably talk about marriages for days, just based on the experiences and trials and things that we've been through, we've observed, and so it's our pleasure to be on this podcast with you today to talk about relationships.
Well, maybe set the stage here for the listeners. Somewhat of your story, of some of of what you're willing to share about the struggle, so that people know that you guys aren't talking. You're talking like you guys had some. You guys went through something, right? And so before we get into kind of some of those fundamentals, so maybe share a little bit of your, getting started, some of the struggles, so they're, you build that relatability.
Yeah, absolutely. So, prior to 1995 is when Tishara and I got married. We dated for a couple of years, and then we decided to get married, and there were some circumstances that we'll talk about later on that lead up to how we got married. But pretty much we got married in February of 1995, and then probably by June of 1995, we were ready to I was ready to call it quits. Yeah, I was ready to call it quits. I think she was probably ready to call it quits too. And so there were some things, when we talk about relationships, man, there's when you're dating someone or you're courting someone, you really don't get to know that person until you actually move in with that person. And so when you move in with that person, that's when you really begin to start the onion, the layers of onion, it starts to unpeel, and you start to see some things that maybe you didn't recognize or you were blind to while y'all were courting one another. And I'm certain that I saw things in Tishara, and Tishara saw things in me. And then 3 months later, after the emotions of being high and in love and ooey gooey, 3 months later we were like, what are we doing?
I think it was actually longer than that, because when we got married, we lived in Fort Walton Beach for a while, and I think our struggles. It was good in the beginning, but like you said, as time progressed on, I had communication issues. So my background is just. I didn't know how to share my emotions. I didn't know how to share what was going on with me. So if he said something, it would kind of rub me the wrong way. But I wouldn't say anything to him. And a lot of times he didn't know what was going on with me. He didn't know what was wrong. And he would ask, and of course I would say, I'm fine, or I would kind of cut it off short. So I had to learn how to communicate, because this was something new for me. I a brand new, you know, I want to say, I mean, I did not finish college. I had, you know, gotten maybe 2 years into college, and I met him, and, you know, you're still young. There's still so much to a relationship that you just don't know. And so we were walking this out, you know, with friction. And I think a lot of marriages have that, and they may not understand. You're bringing two backgrounds together. You're bringing two people together, cultures, traditions, you know, thinkings, the way you grew up, the way this person grew up, and you're meshing all of that together, how they raised a family, all of this is coming together. And so you're trying to now live your life together, and it's not like what you see, you know, on television, on the Hallmark channel, I guess I should say.
Right.
It's nothing like that.
Yeah, most definitely. You know, Tishara, the first couple of months, years of our marriage, you know, she was so focused on trying to change me, because she felt like I should be doing this and I should be doing that, and you're not doing this and you're not doing that. And so it was almost like an accusatory emotion between us, because she's like, well, James, you're not doing this, and James, you're not doing that. And then I would tell her, you're not my mom. I left my mom at 1210 Street, Shalimar. You know, you stop trying to act like my mother. And so, you know, is that bantering going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And, you know, from a man's perspective, you know, the last thing that a man wants to come home to or be with is somebody who nags all the time. And so you get that nagging on a consistent and a regular basis. And it's almost like, you know, how much of this can I continue to deal with, you know, day in and day out? You know, I'm living with this woman who I said I love. You know, I don't know if I, you know, in the beginning I felt it, you know, I felt like I love her, but I don't know if I love her anymore, because, you know, from an emotional perspective, you know, there's no support there. It's almost like, you're not doing this and you're not doing this, or why aren't you doing this and why aren't you doing that? It felt like I had moved in, you know, I exchanged one mother for another, and that's what it felt like. And then I'll let you continue on, because something happened within you that kind of shifted the direction of our marriage.
Yeah, when you're in marriage, you're going to say things that hurt the other individual. You're going to do things that actually hurt the other individual. And, you know, love is not anything that is an emotion. When you're in marriage, you have to, it's something, I think you mentioned this before, you have to grow in love. And growing in love is that test when everything is not working out right. It doesn't feel right. The tone that you're hearing that's coming back at you, it's like, it was vice versa. You know, so it's something that it's not easy, and it takes a lot of work. What made the change within myself, because I was constantly on him about things that he wasn't doing right. I just remember being in church one Sunday, and I think the pastor was talking something about change. I don't even remember the entire sermon, but I know it was something remaining along the lines of change and, you know, changing yourself. But I remember coming home that Sunday, and I just went before God. I got on my knees. I just remember praying out to him, and I will never forget. That was a transition at that moment in my life. That moment right there was a transition that changed the trajectory of my life from that point moving forward. And it wasn't just in our marriage, but the wisdom that God gave me at that moment, it helped me not only in my marriage, but also when I'm dealing with people, whether on my job, whether in ministry. I use that exact same wisdom. What he told me when I came before him in prayer, he said that he wanted to work on me. And he did not want me to he said, I don't want you to bring your husband before me. I want you to come before me. Let me work with you. Let me work on you. Let's talk. And that started my journey with change. God started making a change on the inside of me that sometimes you don't know how a person can change, or you might think, well, I've done so many bad things, or I've done this, or I've done that. You don't know my history. You don't know my background. I can't change. This is the way I've always been, and you can't change me. But the only person that can change you, that can touch your heart, is God. And that's what he did with me. And the things that bothered me about my husband, they no longer bothered me anymore. And some of the things that were bothering me previously, it was almost like he started changing. He wasn't doing those things anymore, but I didn't have to say anything. It started with me. And I think with a lot of married couples, someone has to be the bigger person. It takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of, okay, I can do this for the sake of the family. Because what we've realized over the time, what people see now, this just didn't happen just overnight. It just didn't happen within a year, 2 years, 3 years. Where we are now, this is taking years into the making.
We're not that old.
Well, no, we're not that old. We're not that old. I mean, we're still in our 40s. But what I'm saying is, it didn't happen overnight. And sometimes when you see people, you think that their marriage is perfect, but they don't go through anything. You know, they've gone through some things that have brought them to a point to where things just don't bother them like they used to. So I don't know if you have anything else to say about that.
No, I mean, it's she changed, and when she changed, it either changed her and how she saw the things that I was doing, or I started making her change, provoked me to start making some changes in my own personal life. And I think the important thing is that when Tishara pointed that out, you have to be willing to be the person to change, even if the person you're with is not making the changes that you would like to make. And see, that's the whole thing is a lot of people, when they give with the expectation of receiving something back, and when we're in church all the time, people say that, don't give if you're, don't give your money if you're expecting to receive something back from God. That's giving selfishly. Well, the same thing with changing, you're not changing necessarily to try to get the other person to change. You're changing to better your relationship, to better your vertical relationship. So you're making the changes to better your vertical relationship. And then the benefit of making that change would be the horizontal relationships getting better. And so if you're changing vertically and you're making the changes to make you a better you, and you're doing it regardless of whether the people around you make changes, then that's how you do it. It's like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when the king was going to throw them into the fire, they said, we know who God is and we will serve God, and we know he's able to deliver us from the fiery furnace. But even if he doesn't deliver us, it doesn't change the fact that he's God. So when we talk about change, people have to realize and understand, I'm going to make the necessary change. I'm going to make the necessary sacrifices for me to be the best version of myself that I can be, regardless of what everybody else does around me.
I think that is so true. When you start working on yourself, when you take the ownership of working on yourself first, and you're doing that in every single relationship that you're a part of, because you're going to meet friction up against friction. There's going to be personality, there's going to be personality differences, whether in your home, whether at work, whether in ministry, whether out in the marketplace. It could be friends. You're gonna face something that there's a little bit of a rub, and it doesn't feel good. But if you hold on to who you are and why you're doing what you're doing, it takes sacrifice, because not a lot of people like to make sacrifice, and not a lot of people like to be the one to make change first, because always, well, you change. I'm the one that's always changing. Why do I have to be the one to change? You change or you do this. And I understand that within marriages, there's so much going on, whether it's, adultery or whatever the hardship is, or there may be some type of spousal abuse. There's a lot of pieces that go into marriage, and it takes a lot of work. It takes communication between two people. Can we do this? Can we make it work? And you have to be able to face reality, and you can't create a false picture of something that you're hoping or thinking that, okay, if I do this and this person will do this, if I do this, maybe this person will do this. There's some things you can't do on yourself. You can't do by yourself. It is going to take God himself. You have to have his help, and you have to have a community of people that's surrounding you, that's helping you and encouraging you and building you up. If you don't have that, a lot of marriages, they don't last. I mean, they don't.
Why do you think change is such a bad word in relationships? Because your guys, you're not the only people that, don't change me. Well, you need to change. Why is that such a bad word in relationships?
Stubborn, selfishness, ego. It's when you don't want to change, you're looking at yourself. It's like, well, I. You don't want. I don't know. There's just. I think you're just being selfish. People don't see it that way. I didn't even see it that way. But one thing about it, when he came to me, he spoke that to me. He did not speak that to me in a way of hatred, because of the way that I had been speaking to him, or the way that I was treating him. He didn't come to me in a way of beating me over the head. Well, I'm going to get you because you did this and you're going to change. God is a God of love. He's a God of peace. He's a God of character. And the only thing he wants is for people to love the way he loves. And he came to me in that manner. And I've used that exact same thing. The way he ministers to me, the way he loves me, that in turn is the way that I started loving my husband. My tone started changing. The way I treated him started to change, because he was making a change on the inside of me. And when you start making a change on the inside of yourself, when you know that you can't do it, and it's somebody else, there's something else higher than you, and you're seeing benefits of yourself, it's all worth it. What we're doing is legacy. This what we're building is generational, because there are a lot of couples out there that feel like they can't make it, that either one or the other in the relationship can't change. They don't want to change. And like you said, that word change, it is a big word. It is a huge word. And not a lot of people they don't want to step over that line. They don't want to cross over that line. And they would rather just, no, I'll just stay the same. I'm not doing it. And so they remain the same. Their marriage remains the same. It doesn't get better.
So outside of this change word, what are some other, now you guys have been helping people and helping couples and relationships, and what are some of the other issues that you see that arise within marriages?
Communication. I think communication's big. When you look at communication, gosh, we could spend days talking about communication and the lack of it, or how important it is. I remember when Tishara and I, when we would make these road trips to Alabama or Florida, and we'd be on the interstate, and Tishara would say, she'd say, "James, are you hungry?" And I'd say, "No, I'm not hungry." And I'm driving. My mind is focused on getting to a destination. And so I'm passing exit upon exit upon exit. The environment in the car changes. Okay, there's a silence. I can feel it in the car. And so I asked her and I said, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" Her response, "I'm fine." And the way she responds, I know she's not fine. She's talking to me. She's not saying nothing. And so what she asked me a question. I gave her a response to her question. But see, what I realized then that I know now is that when she says, "James, aren't you getting hungry?" she's telling me she's ready to eat. That's what she's telling me. Now, why she just can't come out and say, "Can we get something to eat? I'm hungry."
Right.
I have no idea. But in the relationship, we learn. I've grown, and I've grown, and we've both grown, and we've been able to mature a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, and it's helped our communication, in the way we communicate with one another. And so, there would be times when I would say something and Tishara would just go dark on me. It's like nothing. And so I approach her and I say, "Hey, is everything okay?" "No, I'm fine." "Are you sure?" "Yes, James, I'm fine. Everything is fine." And I'm like, internally, I'm saying, what in the world is going on with this woman? And now I'm trying, in my head, I'm trying to say, okay, what did I do? What did I say? I'm just trying to think of, what is it that I did, or what is it that I said that rubbed her the wrong way? And it would be maybe a day or 2 days later, she'd come to me and we talk, and only to find out and learn that what came out of my mouth was interpreted incorrectly. It was not interpreted the way that I intended for her to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, fast forward, we're in this thing 27 years now. The other day I said something and it rubbed her the wrong way, and she didn't get silent on me, but I could tell something was bothering her. So then I asked her, I said, "Is everything okay?" And she opened up and told me how she felt. And then I explained to her that was not my intention. My reason for saying what I said was not because of what you did, or what you thought you did, that you thought I didn't approve of. Because I never said I didn't approve of it. And so we were able to work that out, but if you go back 10, 15 years from yesterday,
Yeah.
man, we might still be mad at one another. But it's just, I got a prop here. Can I use a prop?
Sure.
And Eric, you might be familiar with this. This is a bag of Chex Mix. All right. So what's in this bag is what we call content. right? There's content in this bag, and it's wrapped within context. So how I deliver this Chex Mix to you is the context in which I'm giving it to you. But there's content in this bag. This is a black trash bag. Okay? If I take the Chex Mix and put it in this black trash bag, the content doesn't change. The content is the same. Taking it out of here and putting it in here doesn't change how this tastes, right? What changes is that if I take the Chex Mix out of here and put it in this black bag and I give it to you, now the context in which I give it to you has changed, but the content is the same. So a message needs to be delivered, and the way that you present that message makes a huge difference in relationship and communication and how we communicate with one another.
That's really good.
When we're in relationships, and it's always, if there's a disagreement, it comes from an accusatory or defensive manner or act, and it's always, well, you did this and you did that, and you were supposed to do this and you were supposed to do that. Well, if you change it up and you say, you know what, Tishara, this is how I felt when this occurred. So now I'm delivering, and now instead of pointing my finger and saying you, I'm redirecting it back to me, and I'm saying, when we had this experience, this is how I felt. Versus, because you didn't do this and you didn't do that and you did this, all that finger pointing and accusatory emotional behavior, all it does is create tension in the home. And you can't build anything when there's tension in the home. The way you build is you redirect things towards yourself, and it creates an environment and space for that other person to receive what it is that you have to say, instead of that other person getting defensive and saying, well, no, you did. No, well, you told me, well, no, and now all you got is the you argument, and nothing gets accomplished. Tishara comes to me and she says, we're watching television, and this is maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's been a while. We're watching television, and there's somebody on TV, and it's this gorgeous lady on TV, and I said, wow, she's beautiful. And Tishara gets silent. I mean, just silent. And all I did was make a statement. I was like, man, she's beautiful. And I knew I made a mistake. All right. I knew I made a mistake. But she comes to me and she's like, well, you never tell me this, or you never tell me that, or you never. And I'm saying to myself, oh my God, I've created this, because in my opinion, or from where I'm coming from, I tell her that she's beautiful all the time. I tell her that she's gorgeous all the time. No, I think I said she's fine. I said a word that I normally don't say. And when I said that word, Tishara got quiet on me, and I knew that I made a mistake. When Tishara comes to me and she says, when you made that statement, this is how I felt. I felt like this. And so when she words it like that, it opens up my heart to say, I'm sorry, I did not intend to make you feel like that. And me making that statement has no bearing on how I feel or how I see you at all. I mean, you're my wife. You're my ride or die. we're going, it's me and you going places, not the person on, not the person on television. And I apologized to let her and let her know that, hey, I didn't mean to offend you by making that statement. But the way she approached it made a huge difference in saying, when you did this, or when this was said, Jimmy, when we were watching television and those words came out of your mouth, this is how I felt.
I want to add on to that, because I knew that he loved me. And so that, I don't think that wasn't the issue, but it was the statement that he made about the other lady on television that he saw, because he was saying that about her, but I had not heard that word about me. So when a woman hears that, it's like, well, what's wrong with me? And then it starts to go internal. And if you don't deal with that quickly, that thought will start to turn into a picture, because the enemy starts to take that one thought and he will turn it into a picture. And now you're meditating on this picture that now he's turning into this full movie that's being played out in your mind of things that probably he never even, he was not even intending, never even thought of, but now he's putting all these thinkings and these thoughts. And once it gets here, then it will slowly drift down into your heart if you're not careful. And I've had that happen. And I know that goes on. I'm pretty sure that goes on in other married couples as well. Just image. One spouse may say this about this person, but they don't say that about their own spouse. Or you may go out and this one may comment on on someone else, and it's like, well, you're constantly thinking, well, what's wrong with me? Why don't I hear those things? What's wrong with me? And it goes back. Usually it will probably trickle back to something that has happened previously or prior, or even going back to something that might have happened in your childhood that you might not have gotten, and which we feel differently now. But I say all that to say, you have to communicate. You have to talk about these things when they happen. If it's a constant thing that's going on all the time, and then you get to a point, it's like, well, I'll just go somewhere else. You're leaving where you are, going somewhere else is not going to solve the issue, because you're leaving, going somewhere else to someone else. You're bringing that exact same baggage that you're dealing with into that same relationship. You're carrying what you've not come face to face with, because you're not willing to face what's going on with you. And so sometimes when things, and another way to look at that is, okay, well, he said that. Why am I feeling that way? I shouldn't feel that way, because I know that he loves me. Okay, God, why am I feeling like that? Is there something in me that you're trying to talk to me about, that you want to change in me?
Yeah,
No.
so that's so good. That's so good. I feel like, so one more quick question about communication, and then we'll move on to the next topic. But with communication, it sounds like not only like the tone matters, but like how quick you address it. Will you guys briefly touch on why it's so important to address it quickly rather than let it fester?
Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I mean, if you let something dwell within you, we're all emotional people. Every single one of us, we have emotions. And whatever goes on in your thought process, it impacts your emotions. Your emotions impact your decisions. Your decisions impact your actions. Your actions become your behaviors. So whatever goes on up here is important. And so if you don't address what's up here quickly, it can get you distraught emotionally, which will then impact decisions and actions and behavior that you make. And that's, I mean, that's why it's important that, when there is something that happens, you go ahead and address it as quickly as you can.
Yeah, I agree. You never want anything to linger. If it starts to linger too long, it can go into anger. It can go into resentment. I mean, it can go into a lot of unhealthy places. Then you start to deal with unforgiveness. There's just a lot leaving those doors open when they need to be closed quickly. And it's something that we have to learn along the way. And we're still learning. We're still walking this out, even at 27 years. This year, we're coming up on, it's going to be an even greater walk, more for us to embark upon. We don't have all the answers. We just know where we are today. God brought us to this point. We didn't get here alone. We didn't get here by ourselves. There's no way that you can have a successful marriage without God. Some people may say that you can. You can have all the money in the world. You can have everything that everything that looks like it's good. But I can guarantee you there's something underneath that is not going right. And you have to have God in order to make that work. It's not going to work without him. It's a false perception of what you're trying to portray to people that, oh, this is real. What you see here, we've had our ups and downs. We have a lot of good days and bad days. We laugh, we joke. Someone made he posted something on Facebook about a month or two ago, and someone had made a comment about us, like it was like, okay, are they really real? Are they really like this? Yeah, we're like this behind closed doors. We're like this outside. Talk to our kids. They'll tell you.
I'll vouch for it too. We've been around you guys enough tonight. That's why we want you guys on our show to share these types of stories. So I got one more question before we kind of wrap it up. So what would you say to young people who are just getting into, now we're talking to, your daughters, to Madison's age group, and specifically Jimmy and Tishara, we've talked on previous times about help dispel this concept of in love. What kind of help, in addition to that, if there's anything else that you would help set young people up for going into a marriage, who are thinking about marriage, what would you tell them?
Well, one, there's no such thing as falling in love. If you fall into something, you can fall out of it. Love is not an emotion. Love is a force. When couples, if I go out on a job interview, and I remember the first job I went to, it was at McDonald's, real job. I think I was 15 years old, and I had on my jeans and had on a polo shirt and some tennis shoes. And my dad said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going for my job interview." And he says, Are you going for the job that are you applying for the job that you want, or are you applying for the job you're going to get?" And I didn't understand that at first. And at that point, he says, you always, when people's first impression is sometimes the only impression you get to make. And so I had to put on a shirt and tie and went to the McDonald's interview and so on and so forth. And I say that to say this, is that when we're courting one another and we're dating one another, you will always see our best. Always. You will always see our best. What you won't see is the experiences and the relationships and the history that I have gone through up to this point. You won't see it. And in order for you to see it, you're going to have to live with me for a while, because it's not until you get comfortable with one another that you begin to start letting your guard down and the real you starts to surface. And so, you know, people say, you know, people, you know, they meet people for the first time and they're really high emotionally on that person, but you truly won't know that person and until you guys are actually living together, because then you're going to see the impact of the experiences and how that individual was brought up and raised and so on and so forth, and their thought patterns and what they think and what they believe. All of that's going to come to the surface, and then it's going to be like reality kicks in. Mm-hmm. And the thing is what do I do? And so I think for young people who are considering getting into a relationship, getting married, one word that I really like to use here is the word awareness. You must be aware that you're not perfect and that you have issues. Mm-hmm. But you also must be aware that your spouse or your significant other also isn't perfect and also has issues. And if you're aware that I'm not perfect and that I also have issues, you can put your mind in a state to where I can make changes. I can put myself into an emotional state that, you know what, I'm getting ready to go into this relationship. Before I go into this relationship, I know and I understand that in order for this relationship to work, it's going to require me to make some changes, some personal changes, and that I can't force this person to be or become who I want them to be and become. I got to make myself the best version of myself that I can. And in order to do that, it's going to require me to be aware of some tendencies, some habits, some behaviors, some things that I say, and knowing that I am going to have to make some changes in my personal life in order for this to be a fruitful relationship. You know, I heard pastor say one time that he spends his time serving his wife, and his wife spends her time serving him, and they try to outserve one another. And when you try to outserve one another, it doesn't necessarily give you the time to focus on what he or she is or is not doing, because you're not worried about that. What you're worried about is, how can I be a servant? How can I serve this person the best way that I can? Yeah. And the way you do that is being the best version of yourself that you can possibly be, without outlining the flaws that you see in the particular person that you're with. You just can't do that. Both people must understand that they're not perfect, and it's going to require both of them to make changes for the relationship to be fruitful.
So I'm curious, sorry, real quick. I'm curious, like, are there any like tendencies you can look at, any questions you can ask before that reality like check really sets in after the marriage? Like, before you even get married, are there like anybody that you can look at to kind of see what that person's true colors are? I'm just curious about that.
I was going to say, you know, a good thing to do, I feel like, is to get around other married couples, and just, if you're dating, you know, just get around other married couples and just see how they react to one another, how they love one another, and just begin to ask questions. You know, set it out, do an experiment, you know, do an interview with your mom and your dad, you know, do an interview with some other couples, you know, maybe in the church or in the marketplace, or maybe some of your friends that are married, and just begin to get their feedback. And I think that will kind of help. I think surrounding yourself with a community of people healthy, marriages will help you, because when you're going through something, especially a young couple, you can't just bail out quickly and say, okay, I'm done.
I mean, you can.
You
You can.
You can,
You can bail out. I mean,
but you're still gonna come up. You're not gonna get the result that you're looking for. There has to be grace that you're giving each other, mercy that you're giving each other, love that you're giving each other, because you know that at some point he's going to say something that's going to rub me the wrong way, or he might come home from work and he's had a long day, a stressful day, and me asking him how was his day, and the tone may come out of a little bit edgy, and it's like, okay, he had a rough day. Are you going to take that as, oh, well, I don't have to take this, I'm not dealing with this? Or, okay, I see that he's going through something, but you will only get that through experience and talking to other couples, the experiences that they go through, like what you're doing with us. We're giving you some life experiences. We've had to give each other a lot of grace, a lot of mercy. We love each other through our mistakes. We still have disagreements. We still have disagreements today. It's all in how we work through those things. It's all in how you're willing to work through them, because when you have friction with each other, that's your test. What am I going to do at this moment? And I think that's where communication, it has to be real and it has to be genuine, and you have to be able to be honest and open with one another. And I can tell you this too. Sometimes as young people, you might not know, you might think that you know everything about that person, but as you grow with them, there's going to be some more things that's going to pop up that you didn't know about that individual, or something that maybe they didn't tell you before they got into the marriage. What are you going to do? How are you going to walk through it? It's gently walking together, hand in hand. And I truly believe that's what's got us to this point. It's nothing but God. He has been our source. He has been our foundation. When you don't know what to do, when you're calling on maybe your mom and your dad, or you're calling on your pastor, or you're calling on someone else to get advice or for help, and you're not getting anybody, fall back on God himself. Allow him to help walk you through what you need to do, how you need to do it. He's always going to give it to you in a way of grace, in a way of love, in a way of peace, in a way of mercy. It's everything that represents his character. And that's what we're trying to build ourselves, because our girls, we don't want them in a marriage that's going to be chaotic or working out in a way that we didn't expect. We're trying to live this out so that they will know what a healthy marriage looks like.
But in talking with them, because they're older and they're approaching that point, the advice that I give them is that you must evaluate the relationship that young man has with his mother.
Yeah, that is huge.
Evaluate the relationship that he has with his mother, and also evaluate the relationship that he has with his father, because that in itself is it's not the one all be all.
Or her with her father.
But it plays an important part in the dynamic of your relationship with that person moving forward, because how that person sees his mom and dad act and respond as they grow up, he learns from them, or she learns from them. And so when difficult times come or they arise or they surface, that person's going to learn how mom and dad handle those difficult times and situations. And so that when they get to the point where they're facing difficult times and situations, subconsciously, it's going to fall back and default to how mom and dad handle it. And so that might cause a conflict in y'all's relationship. But it's important that a father has 3 sons, and he tells all 3 of his sons, he says, before you get married, before you commit yourself, evaluate the relationship that woman has with her father.
Mm-hmm.
One of the sons listen. 2 of the sons, they end up marrying somebody who actually their spouse hates their father or has no relationship with their father whatsoever, and now they're divorced. And so, I have to say that in some way or some aspect, if you can evaluate and get an understanding of the dynamic of the family of the person that you're like emotionally committing yourself to, it's gonna help you, and it's gonna help y'all's relationship moving. It's gonna help y'all's relationship moving forward. When you have 2 cultures, 2 people from 2 different cultures come together, whereas in a culture where the woman does everything,
She serves
the husband, she does everything, and they have children. And so now that son sees his mother do everything in the house, wait on hand and foot for the husband. And that son comes and he marries an American woman who is independent, who doesn't necessarily need a man, and somehow they emotionally they get together and they commit themselves to one another.
You're gonna have some issues.
But now there's issues because he's expecting one thing and she's expecting another. Now, that's not to say that their relationship can't work. It won't and can't work out. But what it does do is it creates additional complications to the marriage, because marriage requires 2 people to change, right? And it requires at least one person to change so that change can be provoked throughout the whole marriage. And if neither one of them are willing to change, then nothing's going to get built. And then at the end of the day, they'll split up. She'll go one way, he'll go one way, and what's accomplished?
That's a big thing, Madison, because there are marriages now that you do have a spouse, and it might be female that's very, very independent. They're from a background of being independent. I don't need a man. I don't have to have a man. I can do this on my own. And then you're getting married, this man and this woman now, and it will cause friction, because now the woman is thinking in her mind, this is what I've always done. Okay, there's not going to be a proper balance, because the man is not going to be in the role that he's supposed to be walking in the marriage. More so than likely, the wife will probably be walking in that role, and it's going to cause some friction, or the man will, there's going to be just a lot of different dynamics in that. There's a lot in marriages that we could talk about, but just, look at the background, see how, that spouse is actually treating the mom, the dad, because based on how they're treating them will be how they treat you. If there's no respect with the mom or dad, or there's no respect there, when you get into that marriage, just know what you're walking into.
Yeah.
I think that's so good. So good. I think that, in fact, it's so good that we're going to end this series. We've already hit our time mark, so we're going to end it on that great piece of advice. And as you guys can tell, those who are still with us, watch this, that they are filled with information and wisdom on relationships and marriage. And again, we thank you guys for coming on and sharing everything that you've shared. We so appreciate that. And thanks again to our viewers who are watching. We know that this episode will have been helpful and talking about marriages. Anything in closing that you want to add?
Just thank you guys. Thank you for talking to the younger generation. Thank you for speaking into marriages already. And we're looking forward to build to last. So
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Well, everybody have a great day. Until next time on Legacy Builders. Talk to you later.
see ya.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks so much for joining us today on the Legacy Builders podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach us on any of our social media or email the questions to legacybuilderspodcast@gmail.com.